Well, Sal, people who've been watching our shows can't be surprised by what happened, but it's Eric Adams' Independence Day. He's off the hook with the criminal charges, and he's now announced that he's running for mayor as an independent. How are you today?
Jason, it's another sunny day out here in South Florida, as you know. Uh, I don't think any of this was unexpected. I think that you were right on, you hit the nail on the head with this whole court case and the fiasco that ensued afterwards. And I think the independent run was bound to happen because this guy was not liked in the Democrat Party lately. I wouldn't say always because he was partying with these guys, but the reaction of this, and again, you see these, I don't know what you want to call them, MAGA influencers. I don't know if Trump campaign pays these guys. I don't know what it's going on there, but they're trying again to make this a big deal that Eric Adams is now like the MAGA mayor. I want to remind people that, first of all, his case, he was very much guilty of, whether he says, I didn't do anything wrong, but people pled guilty and are now facing sentences and there's repercussions for that. In the judge's own ruling, which I saw you put out, if anyone wants to bother reading it, which I suggest you do and don't be low information, he scolded Trump's Justice Department as well as basically clearing the 7 attorneys that left because of this that have integrity, by the way, the Republican attorneys, by the way, and basically saying that the case disgracefully is being dismissed with prejudice, which means it won't be brought back, which is a disgrace in itself due to political reasons. And Roger Stone says it best in his book, Stone's Rules. Politics is theater for the ugly. And this got ugly, and it is ugly. And, I still see this as Eric Adams' approval rating is 20% and dropping. Eric Adams now is an independent, makes this a 4-man race, which would favor Curtis Sliwa as a Republican. So I'm all for him jumping in as an independent, but it's sickening to continuously see these MAGA influencers or whatever they want to call themselves. It almost seems, Jason, like they're parodying the exact same thing and just copy and pasting each other. This is something that's been alleged prior, with the Epstein files debacle, and you're seeing it again with this today. And you call it Eric Adams Independence Day. Yesterday was President Trump named it Liberation Day, and I guess that was Eric Adams Liberation Day.
Good point. Yeah, it's weird. I still have the feeling that Trump hasn't followed this closely and must not be aware of the implications of what may happen next. But let's stay on Curtis Sliwa for a second. He's a nice guy. I've had a limited amount of personal interaction with him, and I think he's certainly a much better candidate than any of the other dopes that are running. But Curtis had a tough time getting off the ground last time. New York is a media-intense market, and he's a media-savvy guy. He's had his own radio show and everything like that. But it's a difficult thing to do, Sal, to run and win for mayor of New York City. Can Curtis do it?
Well, I say this. I think he learned a lot in his prior campaign. He had the right idea, but obviously he was a novice at running a campaign, and he lost. And I remind people that Rudy Giuliani, in his first mayoral campaign, he lost. Okay, many people lose. Look, President Trump, whether you like it, say it or not, whether you say it's stolen or whatever you want to call it, he lost, right? So everyone who loses, they come back. Richard Nixon lost. He came back to trounce his opponents and become president and get elected twice. And one is the record for the most electoral votes in a presidential election. So Nixon, another story of a comeback. Trump, another comeback. So I think Curtis's strategy is a winning one right now for Republicans. I'll tell you why. He is not campaigning in Manhattan. You know why? It is a complete lost cause. It is probably full of the most single-handedly low information people you can meet in this country. They basically vote in droves, whether it's for socialite reasons, whether it's they love people that say the word shorties. That's who they're going to vote for. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about economics. They don't care about anything other than
wait a minute.
Kind of low
just campaigning in the Rockaways? Where are the shorty voting contingency? Where is that located, Sal?
Where is that located? I don't know. This is Eric Adams' crowd. That's why he's at 20% approval rating. But Curtis,
Gerrymandering the shorties.
yeah, but Curtis is campaigning in the outer boroughs. Because remember, as a Republican, he will most definitely carry Staten Island. There's three other boroughs, though. And you need the Bronx, you need Queens, you'll need Brooklyn. Manhattan is a lost cause. So that's where the battle truly is. And look at this. This is something nobody's talked about. And yet again, it's being shown as of today, right here. This is another poll nobody wants to look at. Everyone wants to look at the polls where Cuomo pays to put his name up there. In a general election right now, you see that? Curtis Lee was consistently at 35%, which is the Republican vote, and some moderates or Democrats or independents for the moment. And then you see the other numbers. Cuomo's at 30. I think Maldani, who's the socialist, what is he? He has 22%. And then here's the guy who's going to kill the whole thing, and that's Eric Adams at 11%. These three right there, they basically canceled themselves out. Oh, Jim Walden will be running, and he counts as an other because he's also an independent. So in a 4 or 5 man race where you're dividing the liberal vote or the socialist vote or the low information vote, that stronghold of the conservative vote and common sense people will win. So in that scenario, guess who becomes your next mayor in New York City? The guy Eric Adams, a clown and a buffoon, when he should really look at himself in the mirror. That's your next mayor. And then I would love to see what happens then, because here's a guy who's not corrupt. He's not paid for. He won't hire stooges and people that he owe or whatever. Guys like Tim Pearson, that if you watch my show today, the Greco show, we unveiled some brutal details of what happened in those lawsuits involving sexual harassment with him. That's not what you're going to see. Curtis will clean up the city because his heart and his mind is in the right place. He's not doing it, try to get rich. He legitimately cares, and he knows he can fix the city. He knows much of the policies inside out. Of course, can't say the same for Eric Adams, as you know. And I think this has been a failed experiment. And I hope New York City learns that just because someone says I was a cop and nobody really does any research and bothers looking, that you second guess when they say I'm a cop, law enforcement, law and order. Yet their whole career was the opposite. They were hiding. They were sexually harassing women. They were grifting with their groups. And that's what Eric Adams is. And I hope this doesn't backfire on potential candidates that are former or retired police officers.
So, Sal, when you were on the NYPD, what was the official and what was the unofficial attitude towards Curtis Sliwa's Guardian Angels? It's really not any kind of government-sanctioned thing. I mean, it's a vigilante organization, technically speaking. What did the cops think of them?
They say that it's a gang, and then again, the NYPD is a gang. So, you know, any group of people can be a gang. Curtis used to have a, we're not going to say not such a fond relationship, we'll say, with the police department in the 70s and 80s. Again, that was a rough time. You could go back and look at who was even in the streets and who was ruling the streets at that time. But since the Giuliani and Bloomberg era came in, and there was a lot of, you know, we'll say a lot of cleaning up in the street, Curtis was a friend to the police department. He ended up in court cases against the organized crime. So he became close working with the police in general. But he's also
he knows RoboCop.
There you go. But his group is just an added set of eyes and ears in a place where people might be afraid to go to police officers. They might be afraid to tell, you know, who you're going to tell in the police department. It goes back to Eric Adams, as you know. You file a complaint, it goes to the guy you're complaining about. I mean, the NYPD is really become a circus and a joke at this point, especially on this police commissioner who should resign in disgrace, but she won't do that. But I'm saying that they're an outlet for the actual New York City resident civilian. And plus, a lot of them know that Curtis, he had a radio show. Right now he doesn't because he's running for mayor, but he does have a big voice. He's got his own platform. He's got his own show, and he brings out all the points of the people that are forgotten in New York City. Nobody cares about the subway rider because Eric Adams wants to party with the friends of Eric Adams and the rich socialites all the people that'll vote again because they're low information, because all they want to do is be in a club. But the actual blue collar person, that single divorcee, the single parent, those people that have to work 3 jobs, they want a blue collar mayor, someone that will listen to them and follow through with what they promise. Eric Adams, the only thing he promises and follows through in is, where's the party at? What are you going to be paying me for? And is there a way to like influence peddle, or do you have connections to real estate or other rackets going on in the city? That's what he's all about.
Holla at the shorties.
Hollering at the shorties. Don't forget.
Pretty dangerous, Sal, to be a guardian angel, because these guys can't use weapons. They can't arrest people, and the criminals know that. I mean, it's a little crazy, actually, what Curtis Sliwa does. He's definitely bold.
Yeah, well, listen, this was what he did. It was at his time. Wasn't really, there were no cameras and cell phones.
Right.
There wasn't any of that kind of stuff. You didn't have a Orrin Levy running around as a propagandist plant from the police department. He was actually detailing the madness that was going on. He would go to the media, if you remember, have video. He's telling you this going on, that going on. There was no propagandist at that time. All right. And guys like him, or that other nut job that we discussed on the last time I was on, the other nut job that's screaming and yelling at every protest. These are the people that film things and then drive the narrative. Again, controlling the narrative, right? That's the whole point of this. You've heard it with John Schell, the chief of department of NYPD. They want to control the narrative because it's all about perception management. But Curtis, in his day when he started, there was none of that. He was out giving you a narrative of what went on, the subway crime, the crime in the street, what the police department was doing, what political figures were doing. He got arrested doing protests, and he was civil disobedience. He didn't do anything crazy. He's not swinging at people. He's certainly not biting police officers like a certain politician did in Brooklyn, a city councilwoman who now Deputy Mayor Kaz Daughtry was hanging out with the other day. So he said that she was disgraceful, but he has no problem standing right next to her. So that just shows you who you're dealing with. You're dealing with a bunch of slobs that really don't have a soul. They only care about themselves. They're self-impressed people that want to remain in power because they love the nightlife and all that other stuff. And that's where these Kaz Daughtry's and Eric Adams, all these kind of people stick. And so does Andrew Cuomo. I mean, he was a horrible governor, let's face it. And him being mayor, you're just repeating the mistakes of the past. But again, we have low information people in New York City who will just vote because they're Cuomo-sexuals, or whatever they want to call themselves. This is the woman right here that bit a New York City executive, and Kaz Daughtry was seen with them just the other day. So he was condemning her with John Schell at the time, the chief of patrol, and now they're going to sit there and stand behind her. Just so you understand what kind of human beings are running the police department in the Eric Adams administration. And if you elect Cuomo, you're getting the same bunch. You're going to get the same stuff, just so you understand that you're going back to the book of the past, and the past has not worked. Why do you want to move forward with the people of the past? Only a low information person would do that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Manhattan's full of them. So Curtis is correct. Do not campaign in Manhattan. There is no point. They will only elect whatever says Democrat. It could be a 10-time convicted felon, a murderer. They will vote for him. I promise you, that's Manhattan in a nutshell.
Yeah. Speaking of idiots running for mayor and campaigning in Manhattan, I wanted to ask you about Zoran Mamdani. Did you see this?
You're running for mayor? Yes, I can hear you. Isn't this not First Amendment activity, shutting down a business 3 weeks in a row? How many New York City businesses could tolerate to close their location 3 weeks in a row? This is an economic attack on Tesla. How can you sanction this? You will never be mayor. This is not the use of the First Amendment. This is, step away from me. Don't advance towards me like that. Yeah, you did. You just came up to me in a threatening manner and you're advancing towards me. Back up.
Who is that guy?
I don't know. You like how these thugs try to press up on the 5'8", 150-pound guy?
You're just asking him a question, and he's obviously...
He put his hand on my shoulder And that's the indicator for the heavy and the high vis vest to come over and just, set a pic so this douchebag can walk away and go set up his little socialist grocery. So this guy hit me, you see, and he's like, oh, I didn't do anything. I said, you're charging right at me, shithead, and you look like you weigh about 250 pounds.
Listen, if you're going to run for office and you're going to, be out in a crowd and you're answering questions, you can't have a 6'5" stooge then walk in and try to browbeat and bully people around. I mean,
it's not legit. But what about this, Sal? This was Tesla Saturday. It's the third week in a row they've closed it down. They got a sign right here. It says, burn a Tesla. It's a public incitement to violence. And I got to show you this. Let me just show you this for a second here.
Burn a Tesla. So they've got publishing incitements to violence.
Watch this.
So now you've got open incitements to violence right here. Burn a Tesla. This is First Amendment. This is an open incitement to violence, and you're police officers. How is this allowed to be happening? You're the Counterterrorism Bureau, Sergeant Luizzo and Officer Kaiser. This is an incitement to violence.
Look at this guy, Sal.
How can you allow this to be here in public?
It's a peaceful demonstration.
It's an incitement to violence. Why are you getting involved in my conversation with the police? Why don't you fuck off and mind your own business? I'm talking to the police officer.
I live here. This is my city. Keep it peaceful. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to this.
You like how I told the guy, why don't you fuck off? And then the guy starts the body camera. But isn't that insane? Some bald, look at this guy. He's following me. He's chasing me. I'm telling him, this cop is telling me just walk away. And while I'm walking away, that guy's pursuing me. These people who are all wearing the color of the day start surrounding me. This idiot keeps antagonizing me. He's speaking with an accent, telling me to go back where I came from, which is about 10 blocks from where we are right now. This idiot comes in and I'm saying, how are you allowing all these people to surround me? Look at all the high vis vests that come around me. They're working with the police, Sal.
I think, look, you asked a simple question, whether he want to answer it or not. All of a sudden, this other guy came in, and I don't know who this yellow vest people are, but that's the second guy that comes up to you. But the other guy with the camera, he came over to you. I don't know why he got involved. You could ask questions to anyone, especially in the police department, and all of a sudden, he got involved when that other guy walked over to you, but he didn't want to talk to you, and now you're getting surrounded by the guy who's pointing, saying you're a bad guy, and then that attracts attention. So because he failed to step in originally, sometimes by not acting and you're reactive, you could have a problem. So he let you get surrounded yet again when he could have answered your question and told that guy, just back off. I'm talking to him. Don't get involved in my conversation. He didn't do that. And then this guy came in and just started a 5 or 6 man pileup on you, and you're getting chased away. And he didn't even tell you get away from me, the cop. So I have no idea what.
It's quite bizarre, isn't it? Look at this. Look at this segment. So this was on Fox News. This is Charlie Hurt. He was just standing there, and I said to him, Charlie, is this First Amendment activity? Look at this guy scratching his nose in the corner. You see the T-shirt he's wearing? Sunrise Movement. That's one of these 501c3 things that rich people can funnel money to. And then the 501c3 can say, well, we're protecting the First Amendment, so we're going to spend $600,000 getting a bunch of idiots in yellow vests to clog out the street here in front of Tesla and create a big event. The other thing that's crazy about it, Sal, is that I went back there. This was 2-3 hours after that, and the thing cleared out faster than an open bar party when the keg dies. This is the street 3 hours later. We had like 2,000 people. How did it clear out so quickly?
That is crazy. Usually that doesn't happen, because things tend to lag on unless you're getting paid.
Right. That's right.
I like what you do is you're always out there, whether people like what you say or do out there, but you put things on film, you ask questions. I don't see why you're not allowed to not ask questions. But in that instance, you were getting surrounded because the failure of the officer, the mistake they made, in my opinion, is to say that other guy who's slowly moving in on you, because that's how a situation can occur. Sir, I'm speaking to him. Would you please just go over there? I'll speak to you in a minute. He didn't do that. He
The
kind of
cops
got.
always do that. They always do that, right? I mean, that's training to control, to de-escalate. He didn't do that.
You have to, yeah. You want to separate any issues that could happen. That wasn't a real issue because he was, I guess, trying to. You were talking to him, and then this other guy butts in out of nowhere, and he's filming you and all this crazy
He's
stuff.
pursuing me and stuff. He's coming at me. I mean,
Yeah.
it was my opinion, Sal, is that someone has told these police officers, we're going to cause this to happen so that the Oren Levi's and the Olya scooter casters and the whoever is working for the New York Post can get the photographs that we want to spread around the country to tell everybody, oh, look, Tesla is being protested. Let's have the stock go down. Let's have pressure on Elon Musk to leave the Department of Government Efficiency. And, you know, we're going to continue to steal money. He's obviously shutting down things, I think. He's obviously shutting down things that are sending money to these 501c3s. And then once they have the money, they can hire for-profit companies to do security, media projects, lawyers, all kinds of things. It's the way they launder this money into the clear for political operations like this. I can't understand also, you would think Elon Musk, you and I have discussed many times, his lawyer is Alex Spiro, who represents the mayor of New York City. Even if that wasn't, I mean, that's a very close connection. Even if you didn't have, and it's a very good connection for a businessman to convey some sort of a request through his attorney to another client, it's sort of perfect. I don't understand why Eric Adams wouldn't say, hey, Alex, can you call the mayor and tell him to stop issuing permits for demonstrations outside my business, causing it to close 3 weeks in a row? That's kinetic and economic action against the business. It's way different than going to the park and saying, I don't like Elon Musk, or going to City Hall and saying, I don't like Eric Adams. How are they allowing this?
That's, again, the police department can only do, they issue these permits, sound permits, City Hall allows the permits. You basically can get a permit to protest anything as long as you're not some supremacy group, you're not flying swastikas, you're not anti-Semites.
They're saying burn the Teslas. They're out there inciting violence.
But they're going to say that unless they're physically doing it, it's okay.
They are. People are doing it.
I know. I'm saying if it wasn't done in front of you, that's technically how they're going to get around all of that, because you're not allowed to not give a permit unless these are the reasons I'm telling you. Now,
they broke the glass on the business the first week. The door was broken. That should be enough to say no more permits.
You could ask the sergeant, which you were trying to do before you got interrupted by the other guy with the camera. You can ask, why are you standing here? Why is this being allowed? Who are these people? It seems to be the same people every week. So obviously,
exactly,
even be paid. I think you're starting to see paid protesters involved, and a 501c3, because they seem to just move out when the guy says, "All right, time to go." So they keep getting this permit. I'm sure they're going to be there again this week, right? You're going to be there again Saturday. This is a weekly, and it's sad that now I read that Elon Musk, I think, who is probably the biggest bright spot of this entire administration so far, because he has the Doge department running, is stepping away, I believe, in May.
No. That was a rumor they started. What Elon Musk has said from the beginning, obviously he's got a lot of companies to run and everything. He's been saying that there's a certain target that they're going to hit, and he's going at, I think he said they needed to find 1 to 4 billion a week or a day or whatever it was. And he said they were meeting that target, and that by X period of time, they were going to find $1 trillion, and then he's going to leave. There's an expiry date on the Doge, because they said to make it this kind of special department that didn't need congressional whatever, I don't know, all these legal rules or something. So it had a limited time that it was intended to operate. And that's, I believe, spin that the media put out there they're trying to throw whatever shade they can on Elon Musk, just like they did with you, Sal. Anytime somebody gets in there and starts doing something that risks obviously, to me, the money that is being stopped from Doge is money that could be easily misappropriated to these kind of projects. So we see the people that use these resources training them on Musk, and they just want to, ruin his business, make him look bad, embarrass him for hanging out with Trump, embarrass Trump for hanging out with him. You and I haven't even gotten to Signalgate, Sal, which is connected, because you remember when I tried to enter the United States versus Eric Adams, and I had complained that Judge Dale Ho violated my rights by I wasn't complaining that he didn't allow an amicus brief. The judge is definitely within his discretion to do that. The complaint, which has now come up again in American Oversight versus Hegseth et al., which is the Signalgate case, I have filed a motion, just like I did in the Eric Adams case, seeking leave, asking the court to leave its normal process and allow me to file a brief as an amicus curiae, a friend of the court, where I'm challenging the standing of this American Oversight to even be a plaintiff in this case. Now, the way it's supposed to work, Sal, is that this is the United States of America, and the First Amendment allows us not only to have freedom of speech where we can come on this podcast and say I like or dislike Donald Trump or Eric Adams or Joe Biden or whatever, it's also, as you know, it allows us the freedom to to petition the government for redress of grievances. And that includes going to the police to file reports, going to court to file documents like this. And so when these judges, Dale Ho in the case of Eric Adams, and this is Jeb Boasberg in this case, they are saying, Jason, you can't even file anything on the docket. They are denying my First Amendment and Fifth Amendment right to due process.
This is what I have a problem with, because, look, you want to file something, it has to be presented in the docket, showing up, and then they get denied. But it shows up in the docket. What they're trying to do is they're eliminating that process, saying, I'm going to decide this for the court and for the judge. Let them file it, and then they'll decide whether they want to deny this motion or not. They're not even letting you do that, and that's the second time you try this in the last couple of weeks. First with Judge Dale Ho, now Judge Boasberg there, who this guy's, he's a real winner over there. And I have a problem, like I've said in prior, I don't like that judges, all the judge is supposed to do is interpret the law and make a ruling. But when they love doing this, you're banned from doing this countrywide. You're a judge in D.C. What the hell gives you the right to say the guy can't do this in California or national? You're not a national judge. You're a district court judge federally in the District of Columbia. So you put this injunction that's nationwide. What gives you that right?
It's a complicated thing, though, Sal, because these judges do need to adjudicate cases that cross states. I mean, I like what they're talking about. I mean, you're onto something very important, and I like what they're talking about in Congress. There is, I think, Grassley or somebody has a bill proposed that will contain judges' ability to do that, particularly with the president, I think, is where it's important. But, it's funny. All this lawfare stuff they've been doing to me, Sal, I hope it's backfiring a little bit, because what it's done is it's inspired me to, obviously get more involved in legal stuff. I've written this proposal for a bill, and I gave it to a couple of different people in Congress, Eli Crane and Corey Mills. But this is a bill called the Judicial Accountability Act of 2025, and it's intended to establish a framework for the enforcement of the Constitution's Article 3 good behavior clause. It describes that judges will hold office while on good behavior. And this proposed bill is also intended to provide a mechanism for public oversight of the federal judiciary. Right now, it's the judiciary itself that provides the oversight. There's no check and balance there. And what this describes, Sal, like if you get into court, whether it's civil or criminal, and you feel that the judge has violated your constitutional rights, as I am saying I believe they have, you could file a motion under this new proposed thing, and it would go to a special clerk in Congress who would be tasked with only, dealing with these types of motions. And if the information that you provided meets the multi-pronged test described in this document, then it advances to a hearing, and it would be a special kind of hearing that wouldn't take place in Congress. It would actually take place in the district court judge's own courtroom, where they would be humbled by sitting in the defendant box while a member of Congress, they would select a member of Congress to essentially be their lawyer and defend them in this proceeding. And then the opposing party in Congress would choose the opposing counsel. So these two lawyers essentially would meet in court, and through the regular jury selection process, voir dire and all that stuff that happens to agree on the jury, you'd get a jury of 12 people, just regular citizens from this district court's district, because then the judge would know if you or I get into district court over a civil lawsuit, they better be polite and respect the law and your rights, or they might face you someday in a tribunal like this that could strip them of their judging powers. So this is a public check and balance against tyranny that would constantly remind the judges that they are beholden to the law and the Constitution. And if at the end of this trial, a jury of 12, not the Senate, not all this other crap, 12 people would say this judge acted on bad behavior, they would immediately lose their standing under Article 3, and they would no longer be a judge. And that's it. They'd be out. And instead of spending all this political capital to impeach one judge or two judges or five judges, this would be a check and balance against all district court judges.
And people could hear evidence that's presented, and whether, no matter what happens, people could, which that's what I'm trying to say. When you filed this amicus brief that you did, right? Again, it should have been filed in the court like anyone could do this, by the way. And then it's denied or allowed through by the judge, not by the court, not by the clerk, not by any of these people who are clearly doing that to you. And why they want to do that.
Oh, no, this is the judge who did it, Sal. The clerks told me, because I called them. Let me just fill you in on this. I called them after it wasn't docketed for a few days, and I said, hey, what's going on? And they said, well, it takes 24 to 48 hours. And then somebody said it's 48 business hours. I said, are you sure? That's 6 days. That sounds wrong. So then somebody eventually admitted that it's been given to the judge in chambers, and he told them not to put it on the docket. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? The judge is not allowed to invent some kind of black box, unknown process where he looks at my stuff and the public can't see it. Then he did the most idiotic thing I could imagine a judge doing. I guess maybe the clerks told him that I was calling and making noise or whatever. So, because I was saying, it's got to be like you're saying. I was saying, look, this has got to be done on the docket. So, he then yesterday or 2 days ago, when I was doing all this, comes in here and says leave to file is denied. Sorry, I went at this the wrong way. We've got to get the text. He actually added a minute order here, or a minute order, whatever it says, leave to file Jason Goodman. Look, now I'm on the docket. I'm on the record now as something happened, but what? So if there's an appeal of this 100 years from now, if people come to look at this record, they don't know what I had to say. Do you know why he did this, Sal?
Mm-mm.
The amicus brief explodes the entire case because it's true and it's correct. And what I'm saying here is this American oversight thing is a 501c3 public charity arranged under Section 170B1A6. And that says you're not allowed to engage in any politically partisan activities. So these guys told the IRS, well, we are a nonpartisan group of lawyers who are interested in defending democracy and the Constitution, so we're going to be tax exempt so that super rich people could give us money and get a tax deduction. But in actual fact, in the 8 years that this piece of garbage has existed, it has only ever sued Donald Trump and people working for Donald Trump. So what I am saying in this amicus brief is that because Rule 17 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure says that in order for a corporation to qualify as a plaintiff, it's got to be operating under the laws by which it was organized. And since this thing is violating Section 501c3 of the IRS code, I'm saying it doesn't have standing to even be a plaintiff in this lawsuit. And since this lawsuit is all about stringently following government guidelines as defined in the Federal Records Act and getting all up Pete Hegseth's ass for sending a text to other people who are authorized to be receiving it, how are these guys allowed to be out of compliance? And it would make the judge look like an idiot for even entertaining this case, because the Federal Records Act doesn't even have a private cause of action that would allow this thing to sue. So the whole entire case is defective, and me, a pro se amicus, comes along and tells him that, and he says, get out of here, Jason. You're not allowed to file in this court.
Yeah, see, that's wrong, because it should actually say the docket you're trying to file and then say this docket was denied. So
Exactly.
he can deny it, but the public can always, for the record, read what it was you had to say. That's
well, or he could even strike it if he wanted to, but you're right. It would go on the docket and then it would be removed, and he would say, this is being stricken from the record because I don't like guys named Jason. I don't want any amicus briefs in this case.
Yeah.
I don't like what you wrote in the brief. I don't think this is true. He had broad latitude to say and do whatever he wanted once it was entered on the docket. You're right about that. I would have almost no recourse to stop him from denying me leave to move as an amicus in the case. But what he's done here is a denial of due process, a denial of my First Amendment rights. And it's totally wrong. And people want to see the American oversight documentation. And so here it is. This is a 501c3 tax-exempt entity organized under Section 170B16A or whatever it is. And here it is. All of these crazy things seem to be on K Street. So I don't know, that makes me think it's some deep state garbage. But you can see right here, it says it's a 501c3. So he can't do all this stuff, Sal.
Man, this is... Listen.
The courts let him do whatever they want.
They have to. Take your filing. It has to be on a public docket, meaning anybody can read it. He can write whatever he wants. If he's doing anything short of that, whoever the judge is, it's wrong. But again, there's no way of holding the courts or anything accountable, right? So that's the issue here. So the problem here is there has to be a way or recourse, like you said, because the judge has to interpret the law, not be the law or then make this nationwide, citywide injunction. This guy's like, all these guys seem to do the same thing, especially when it comes to presidential orders, which is insane. It goes either way when a pendulum's swinging. The judge interprets the law. That's it. And you have to follow procedures. In your instance, you've already proven it twice. I think on the other instance, they didn't even write anything, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, correct.
There is no record of what you did because the guy completely want to put
nothing.
Oh,
no. He did.
You got both things right now.
He vaguely said that there was a lengthy amicus brief submitted that I'm not going to file, but he didn't mention my name, and there's no record virtually. Dale Ho.
That's a problem because they can't do that, and they know better. They should know better, but there's no recourse for this stuff. So it's good that you're bringing it to light. It's good that you even have something of a bill that's drafted up, and hopefully this could get through something that's bipartisan. I think anyone from any party would say, heck, if I try to file an amicus brief, this guy may not even, just throw it in the trash without even being on a public record. Let him deny it or let her deny it, but it's on a public record and people could still read it. The thing is, nobody wants to be judged on if these cases are corrupted behind the scenes and there's anything to hide, right? Because they could deny your motion, but then you read this and go, wait a minute. Why don't you
appeal? Right.
Yeah.
That's why he doesn't want it in there, because he knows that even if he's like, holy crap, this thing is radioactive. Get it the hell out of here. But let's switch gears for a second, Sal, because you've really been on fire. Great guests, great topics. Now, you've got a bunch of different channels that people should be watching you on. On YouTube, you've got The Sal Greco Show. You're also now a regular member of The Finest Unfiltered, where I saw you doing an interview with Roger Stone about the JFK assassination. And he is, in my opinion, one of the best experts on that topic. He wrote a book about LBJ and everything, and it really, I think, was one of the best sort of solutions to the whole thing. And I could tell you were learning a lot about the JFK assassination from this. What was your impression of speaking with Roger Stone about all this JFK information?
The JFK stuff is fascinating because you still, and I hear that, they're still withholding evidence that somehow the president declassified. He's got to actually go and by agency and tell them they have to do this. It can't just be, he said what he said, and then certain agencies are not doing this. So Roger broke this down. He mentioned all the different agencies about it, like what they're doing and how to get their attention. And also he touched up on some other things that would prove that Lee Harvey Oswald is definitely not the shooter, and that his whole theory about LBJ being the man behind it, and there's evidence and things that lean that way. And it kind of makes sense because he does have a bestseller that's a New York Times bestseller, the case against LBJ, the man who killed Kennedy. I think it was fascinating to hear that. And what was more fascinating is that he's trying to now, his next book is on the Ronald Reagan attempted assassination. And we found out that the shooter in that case, Hinckley, is not only attached to the Bush family, he's also attached to the shooter or the assassination of John Lennon. That individual, They were buddies. They went to the same, it's wild. And then all those files, there was a commission. All of those have been sealed, as you know. So now Roger, who is writing this book, will now say he is going to publicly try to lobby President Trump to now also declassify every single one of those files. And of course, Roger, who was working for President Reagan, and the chief of staff that belongs to President Trump right now, Susie Wiles, also worked for Ronald Reagan at this time. And there's a lot of other people that are still alive today that worked for Ronald Reagan. This was a little closer. As you know, it's about 44 years ago, this past Sunday, that assassination attempt took place.
Wow.
It's also the last assassination attempt that we know of a sitting president. Obviously, they tried to assassinate President Trump, but he was a former president campaigning at that time. So this is important because I'm sure there's a lot. George Bush seems to come up not only there, there's a link also that Roger stated that is back to President Nixon, and Bush seems to just move around the father, and somehow he's linked to these things. And at the time, you heard rumors but can never confirm anything either. So, but now a lot of time has passed. A lot of people have spoken. It's fascinating. That interview you could actually see on the Finest Unfiltered YouTube channel. Also on my X at the Sal Greco, you'll see that I stream each show, and it really has a lot of eyeballs and views and engagement on X. Because as you know, YouTube likes to censor people. Now on YouTube, if you go to my YouTube channel, the Sal Greco Show, you will see that last week on Thursday, I had Joel Gilbert on. And Joel Gilbert, who's a filmmaker, he's a political commentator, but what he's done is he's exposed Letitia James. Apparently, we didn't know about this, but she falsified documents. She committed mortgage fraud, apparently, by marrying her father and
saying that she married her father. Yeah. We haven't seen the actual wedding video,
but
she
said it. But she also in these documents that you have on screen there, the documents is she also said under the thing, it was the trap or something like that. The term,
the troubled asset recovery. Right.
She's saying that she made less than minimal to get a loan when she clearly made $120,000 or more.
Well, and she also misrepresented the property. She said it was 4 units instead of 5, which was a huge fraudulent claim because it took it out of the category of being a commercial property and dramatically lowered her interest payments. This was a brilliant investigation by Joel. I mean, he does outstanding research, and it's another Great video. People really should be subscribing to all of Sal's channels. The Sal Greco Show
As you
on
can
YouTube.
tell, right there, this thing has taken off and had a life of its own on my own YouTube channel, which then...
Oh, wow. Look at that. 96,000 views.
And the second video with the second part of this has another 20,000 plus. It's nonstop also. This video is going to be at 100,000 in another hour or two. This video is over 20,000. It doesn't show up right away, but these are segments from my show, which you could watch live on X or on repeat on X, and also on the Finest Unfiltered YouTube channel. And it's a network we have, the Finest Unfiltered, where we have, of course, the Finest Unfiltered podcast, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 8:05 live. I'm on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12:05 p.m. live. And we have the Executive Perspective, which is at 5:05 or 17:05 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays live. So right now, that's what we have. We're going to add some more programs, but it's basically, we all have a piece that we, right now, currently, all 6 of us used to work at one time for the NYPD. So that's the connection. It's prior law enforcement, but of course, my shows, I've had everyone on from Roger Stone. I've had today I had John Scholar on. If you watch that episode from today, you're going to learn a lot of things about how not only how the city functions, but NYPD is plenty of lawsuits, allegations, is a lot of stuff. And of course, it points to none other than Eric Adams, now the Blue MAGA mayor, apparently. And it's not good. So I'm saying, don't fall for the low information hook lines of these influencer people, because they're going to tell you, oh, Eric Adams is independent, he's great. No. There's a lot there that they're trying to ignore and act like it never happened. But it did happen, and there's a trail of victims and a trail of lawsuits that could lead to civil and criminal liabilities, including my own case, because Jason, he might be called to the stand within the next 2 months. So I don't know why we're just ignoring all of this. Because what? Someone from the White House said so? That's not how this country runs. It's not a dictatorship. As much as I love the guy who's in the White House, he's wrong on this issue. The DOJ was wrong. And this will backfire if you continue to back this man. But remember, Trump's approval ratings in New York City are 30% or less. Endorsing Eric Adams only makes his 20% drop even more. So it's irrelevant. I don't know. Why waste any political capital on a man that has no political future, other than he still has time to try to put Trump's name on the Woolman Rink and the very lengthy golf course in the Bronx. These are things that Trump had his name on, that Bill de Blasio, who Eric Adams loves to tout lately, said he took his name off and used the Capitol and the ride nonsense to say take his name off. But Eric Adams can try to put his name back. You've heard about this. Now, the Parks Commissioner is in charge of the vetting process, and also the deputy mayors, who all resigned, by the way. There was another company that tried to give a gift, and that was rejected, and the deputy mayors ran. But now the deputy mayor of public safety is all of a sudden, in an executive order, in charge of the Parks Department, which means Kaz Dawdry, who is named in numerous lawsuits and is involved in so much corruption himself, is now in charge of hearing this out. The only problem here, and that's the article, the Trump Organization purchased Eric Adams for Woolman Rink rights after City Hall. I think it was $120 million they were offered from another company.
Isn't this the plan? Now Eric Adams will do this, and everybody will say, oh, look, quid pro quo. Trump got Eric Adams off. Eric Adams did this. This is all part of the setup.
Correct. It is a setup, but you have to be naive not to walk into it, right? You could have just said, I don't want no part of this, but apparently, Trump's DOJ, they all walked into this one because greed in the end wins. The real estate racket will win. So if they get this done, but again, there's another article of this, and I know Greg Smith wrote this from the city.nyc. The Trump Organization has a criminal or felony conviction, if you remember. Remember that whole nonsense trial? But they did get convicted.
Oh, with Mershon, right.
So they can't have their name on the Woolman Rink. And they can't have their name on the golf course, because you can't get your name. It's actually a rule, a law. You look at it. All these other companies would move ahead of the Trump Organization.
Because it's on appeal, even if it's on appeal?
even if it's on appeal, it's still that conviction stands. So you can't be rewarding these companies. So
Even if it's P. Diddy?
But P Diddy doesn't have an organization that
No,
owns
I'm saying it was before. They took the key back.
They took the key back. But see, to have the Trump organization back, you have to go over this hurdle. And this hurdle would take a few years, longer than Eric Adams being in office. But
Well, that's why they're going to do it. No, Sal, this is all part of it. They're going to do it, and then they'll say, oh, normally when you have a conviction, you can't do this. But because Eric Adams and Trump are buddies in corruption, this happened. This is exactly what's going to happen. I don't usually like to make predictions, but as you're saying, when it's just so easy, it's like looking at a cat playing with a glass of milk on the countertop. You know what's going to happen next.
Of course, but that was the danger. I rang the alarms. I proved how corrupt this man is. Why would you walk into a trap like this is beyond me. The 3 mistakes so far that we have as a Trump presidency, it's already 3 is too many. Eric Adams being the first one. The second one is this Epstein file rollout, which is a complete disaster. And you're telling the public one thing and another. I lost track of all of that. I don't even think it's relevant, to be honest. It's P. Diddy's case is worse. The guy's in a Rico case by himself. That doesn't even make any case. It makes no sense. And then finally, the Signal Gate thing, where I said, I've been involved in this nonsense where they try to say guilt by association, you're in a chat. Sometimes you get thrown in these chats without even knowing. So there's 20 people. Whoever's talking in there assumes that the person, the admin, which is Mike Waltz, actually
knows who he's adding. Right.
So Mike Waltz allegedly would be the guy. He's the admin. So he puts people in and out. But what we understand is his underling, a Biden leftover, might be the one who physically has his hands on the phone doing this because he's his underling. You can't assume that Mike Waltz even has the phone. But Mike Waltz then turns around and doesn't even give himself leeway, because I had said, if there's nothing criminal here, which it doesn't seem so, and there's nothing that was shared, there's nothing illegal about it. You could say it's a big snafu. Then whoever put this person in the chat, whether it be Mike Waltz or himself, whoever it is, fire him, and you're out. That's it. That's end of story. It was a mistake. Nothing happened out of it. Just terminate the person that put him in. But then Mike Waltz said, I did it. So then Mike Waltz would have to lose his job. He has to go because, I mean, what are you doing? And I don't really think he did it because, again, his underling is the Biden leftover. It only makes sense that his pal in the Atlantic, which is where this Goldberg guy is, he'd be the one to let him in. So once again, Trump he doesn't even have an idea about this. He has nothing to do with this, but the administration walks into a trap. They walked into a trap with that. They walked into this Epstein. This guy's been dead 6 years. I don't know why people still care about him. There's really nothing much that hasn't been shown. There's nothing much left out of that. Ghislaine Maxwell's case is still active on appeal, so you may not be able to even see the documents. But P. Diddy, who's much more important, is a solo co-conspirator in a RICO case. I don't even know how that works. And then, of course, Eric Adams, the single most corrupt politician left in the United States, is now saying that Jesus Christ left him off, but he read a Cash Patel book. When he's partying with Jimmy Rodriguez, a self-admitted criminal mob associate, just a year ago at a nightclub that had reports for human trafficking, with Letitia James standing right there, and nobody did anything about it. It's wild. That's a wild turnaround, but that's a trap that they set. And you either walk into it or say, I'm staying out of it. And unfortunately, I don't know who it is, if it's Trump himself, they're telling him, his children, Boris Epstein, whoever it is that made him walk into these traps. Now you're in it, and now you got to try to dig yourself out of it. Those are his 3 mistakes. I think the biggest thing so far, obviously, Elon Musk. I hope the guy never leaves, because nobody ever knew any of this stuff was going on. He's also doing well, he's trying to rush things, like, because he knows he's not one to waste time. I think the tariffs, in the long run, you will have 50, 60 years of prosperity if this country can withstand this. You saw the market tumble. People are already complaining. People are very low information. Like a baby can't handle anything other than a pacifier in front of them. People are the same 30 years later. So if you can't handle this, How are you going to, you need prosperity. You're going to have to suffer, even if it is for a short term. Short term could be 1 year. We don't know. Trump has his best intentions. It's the only shot you have. So if you're
he's
complaining,
negotiating with all these other countries, isn't he, Sal? It seems like some of them have already caved in. Let me just, one more question on Eric Adams, because we're getting close to the end of our hour here. We had this article, a little over a year ago saying that Eric Adams became a master mason in a secret ceremony at Gracie Mansion. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that you're necessarily like an expert in Freemasonry, and I'm not asking you to be that, but isn't this a little weird to have some sort of like pseudo-religious ceremony in the Gracie Mansion while he's mayor? I mean, and look, and here's, what's his name? The guy who's getting everybody into sexual abuse cases, Ankaban Madri, right? What's going on here, Sal?
I believe this is just a ploy for trying to get protection. Some Freemason that they're trying to say it's some kind of conspiracy ring. I don't even know if this Freemason Lodge is a legit Freemason Lodge. Obviously, I think the New York Freemason, the actual Freemason Lodge, does not recognize these people. So I don't know if this is some kind of like, how these people play dress up, and I was in the military. Meanwhile, you've been retired 30 years, and they run around. You're like, what are you doing, guy? We live in the past. And that's what you have here. I don't know. You got to actually look at the legitimacy of this lodge. What are their credentials? I don't think they're credentials.
It says it's the most worshipful. I don't know. It just went white like this for some reason, but it says it's the most worshipful Prince Hall GL New York. I mean, I don't know how we verify.
Yeah, it said, but I can tell you how you verify. You need to call the actual Freemasons. They are a legit organization, and call them in New York State and say, do you recognize this lodge as one of your own? And see what they say. Because from what I understand is they're not a legit lodge. They were never recognized. So whatever is going on there is more of a, oh, look at us. We're part of a club that we're really not part of. Anyone could do this. You've seen this. Look, if I wear a Mets baseball jersey, I'm not a Mets player, but I'm one of.
You could be on the color of the day. You could be just.
You could put the color of the day, run around and say, hey, I'm Orrin Levy. Excuse me for being involved in raids and illegal raids of cannabis stores and stuff. Hey, by the way, his lawsuit, which, they never filed this motion to dismiss. They filed a motion to dismiss. A friend told me about a case literally in 1 month. 1 month to take a motion to dismiss on a case. His is going on for many, 2 years now.
They file it right away, usually, the motion to dismiss. Last question, Sal. Did you find it weird that Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble were part of the Shriners or something, or the Water Buffalo Lodge? That was a strange sort of a Masonic reference in the cartoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe those guys that were there were part of the Masons, but the Masons are what they are. They're carpenters. A lot of them have lodges and they do carpentry work. You'll see their little
come on, there's more to it than that. I don't know.
They say that, but you might run into some, and maybe they might be politically connected, who knows, or some kind of secret society. But this thing in New York City, where Eric Adams went to, which is laughable since the guy has been nothing but, he said some wild, bigoted, racist things himself, Eric Adams. One of the things about being a Freemason is you can't be a racist or have controversial things going on, and they'll get rid of you. So that doesn't.
If he talks about Negroes, he said something to Negroes?
Negroes, shorties, crackers. His buddy called him Crumb. I mean, what the hell's going on? It's a circus. You can't bring a circus to the Mason Lodge. Come on.
We're laughing, Sal, but this is
privacy.
We're laughing, but this is a little bit of I was trying to deal with this earlier because it's one of these things that, you and I knew for really months. Like, as soon as this whole business went down with Danielle Sassoon leaving, you basically knew right away this thing was out the window. But it's just such a bad outcome. It's really difficult to kind of grapple with,
You know what it is? It's a slow demolition of a building. You're watching it. It was slowly demolished when really you could have done it quick and fast. kind of like my uncle used to do. He used to be in the demolition and construction. He actually worked with Fred Trump and the Trumps back in the day.
Wow.
And they knocked down a lot of Brighton Beach. That's actually a historic fact. So you would knock it down real quick. You come with the excavator, even if it's illegal at that time. The building is empty. You come with the excavator, take the bucket, and you got to knock the whole house down from the top down, 2-3 floors. It's illegal to do it now, but you would do it just like that. But now you got to go through a whole process. So the thing is, you got to do it quick or you do it slow. What we saw is a slow demolition of this entire case, and it was sad. It's historic that it even happened this way. But in no means does this mean Eric Adams is not guilty or does he have a future. You could watch all my previous shows. You could watch my show. We've highlighted all his criminality, all kind of stuff going on, and it continues to this day. And you, the voter, will decide. Are you going to be low information and say he's the blue MAGA mayor because somebody with a high following that might have paid for it tells you so? Or do you follow the facts and the documents and you want to be someone who's an intellectual and say, nah, I'm going to make a very informative decision and say, Eric Adams cannot be my mayor. It's going to be up to you, New York City. And for the rest of the country, I suggest you really do not become low information. And check it out. The Finest Unfiltered YouTube channel. Like I said, the show is Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 8:05 in the morning. Finest Unfiltered podcast. I'm on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12:05 live, and then 17:05, 5:05 on Wednesdays, the Executive Perspective. And go to my X at the Sal Greco. My show streams there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can always watch it on reruns. And that's where technically I get the most views is on X. And also the YouTube on YouTube, go to the Sal Greco Show on YouTube. You could check out the previous segments. And of course, there's stuff that's viral like Letitia James. You could watch it over and over again. Jason, thanks for always having me on here. I love your platform. I don't care what they say about you. I love people that ask. If you don't, you're going to be deaf, dumb, and blind. Or how we say it, you continue the low information way. I want people to be informed, and asking questions is the way to be.
Absolutely, Sal. And thank you for those kind words. My concern, though, about what this will do with regard to Eric Adams is it makes it way more difficult to prosecute the guy for anything. And we know that there's a ton of stuff that he's done that he should be prosecuted for. Looks now like that will not happen, unfortunately, but I don't know, Sal. We're going to have to stick around and see what happens. I want to thank everybody for watching and remind people that they can sponsor this show on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. And good news, Sal. Odyssey just announced that they are sticking with regular credit card processing. I think it has to do with Trump made an executive order that said you're not allowed to use like banking and credit card processing things to force content moderation policies on people. So people can still subscribe on Odyssey with a regular credit card. It's the most economical way to support Crowdsource the Truth. You can also go to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you, Sal, for another great show.